This episode may contain content of a graphic nature, including descriptions of physical and sexual violence against adults, children, and animals. Listener discretion is advised. Hi everyone, I'm Talia.
And I'm Tanya.
And together we are Crimes and Consequences, a true crime podcast.
Hey, Talia.
Hi, Tanya. I want to welcome everybody back to Crimes and Consequences. And thank you guys all for listening. As you guys probably heard in the beginning, we now have ads.
Yes, we do.
Because we've been doing this for over a year and we got to make a little bit of money.
We got to. I mean, we love doing it, but
money would be nice.
Money would be nice.
But if you don't want to have to listen to the ads, you can join our Patreon group, become a member, and it's ad-free. Go to patreon.com/TNT Crimes, get ad-free, early release, live episodes, bonus episodes, so many other amazing things. We could go on and on and on.
We could go on and on.
But anyway, we won't.
No, we won't, because you probably want to hear today's story.
I do.
Before, though, I get to it, please hit the follow or subscribe button on whatever podcast app you're listening to us on. And here we go.
Let's do it.
In May of 1985, a woman by the name of Averill Weeden disappeared in Redding, California. Her mother, Eula, reported her missing on Thursday, May 23rd, after not being able to find her. Eula spoke to Avrill's roommate, Robert Morey, to try and get more information on Avrill's whereabouts, and he told her during several phone calls that she made to the home that he didn't know where she was, and the last time he'd seen her, she was going to the store. The police began an investigation into Avrill's disappearance and spoke to Robert on June 3rd. Robert told the police that the last time he saw Avril, he had drove her to a telephone booth on his motorcycle, dropped her off there, and went to go pick up some drugs for her. I'm not sure what kind of drugs they were. I tend to think it's weed, but I'm not 100% sure.
Were they romantically involved?
No, they were just roommates. He rented a room in her home. He said after he made the purchase, he went back to the telephone booth to pick her up. She was there. He picked her up and they drove home. Robert said, though, he couldn't remember what day of the week it was. He said maybe it was a Thursday, a Friday, or a Saturday. How do you not remember?
And that's like half the week.
I know.
It might be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. I can't remember.
And I got this information for the case today, mostly from the court record, just to let everybody know. On June 19th, 1985, an anonymous person called the Secret Witness. This was a hotline that was established by Shasta County, which Redding was in. It's a telephone hotline that receives information from the citizens in the county about any crimes that they want to report.
Like a Crime Stoppers?
Like a Crime Stoppers, yeah. So it's all anonymous, but it's called Secret Witness. The man asked the hotline how much he would receive for information on the location of Avrill's body. The person that was taking the calls at Secret Witness, her name was Shirley Landreth. She answered most of the incoming calls for Secret Witness, and she spoke to this person who made this phone call.
He wants to know how much he's going to get if he reveals the location of a dead body.
Correct. Like, oh, okay, if it's not enough, I'm not going to tell you?
That's what I'm thinking. What? Okay.
At that time, he didn't leave any other information for Shirley, just asked about the reward. Several weeks later, on August 8th, the same person, Shirley recognized his voice, called the Secret Witness line again, and asked about the reward money he would receive for information on the location again of Avrill's body. After the first call, Shirley got authorization to pay reward money should this person ever call back. So this time, she told the caller, yes, we can give you a reward. And they agreed on the amount. I'm not sure what the amount was. It's never disclosed. The caller then gave precise directions to a wooded area located off a trail behind an auto body shop in Redding. In relating the distance, he used the term meters instead of miles or feet, which Shirley thought was kind of strange.
Yeah, because in the United States, you just don't do that.
Right. We're on the imperial system. Claiming that he knew the identity of the person who killed Avril, the caller offered to give information about the, quote, responsible person if he received his reward money in a timely manner.
Is he asking for more reward money for that additional information?
No, I'm thinking he's offering it, like, if I get my reward money, I'll tell you who I believe did it.
I'll give you some bonus information if you give me the money quickly.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. But if not, he's totally fine with her body rotting.
Right. Right? And nobody being held responsible. The caller also said that there were 6 unsolved murders in Shasta County, and he could give information to solve 2 of those murders. Based on the information provided by the caller, the police were able to find Averil's badly decomposed body. It had been covered with cardboard and what seemed to be an old carpet. The autopsy was performed on August 23, 1985, and it showed that Averil's skull and the bone at the top of her throat had been fractured at or near the time of death. The medical examiner determined that Avril died from multiple traumatic injuries. Either fracture, independently or both in conjunction, could have caused her death.
Sounds like she was beaten and strangled.
Right? The fracture bone in her throat was consistent with like a manual strangulation. I guess that bone gets broken sometimes when you're strangled.
Yes.
After the discovery of Avril's body, Shirley received 4 more phone calls from the same caller in August of 1985. On August 12th, the caller said that the person who had lived with Avril was responsible for her death. So he's implicating the roommate.
Robert.
The caller refused to talk with the lead detective in the case. His name was Detective Dave Mundy, and he was with the Reading Police Department. But the caller said he would call back and answer any questions that Detective Mundy gave to Shirley. So it's going to be like Detective Mundy pass on his questions to Shirley, and then he'll answer them to Shirley. On August 15th, so 3 days later, the secret witness called Shirley as promised. Responding to the questions that Detective Mundy had given to her, the caller said that the person responsible for Avril's death was named either Robert or Bob, and he rented a room from Avril. He said he knew this because he was, quote, sort of with him, like at the time of Avril's death. He said he was Bob's drug connection, and he had gone with him to collect the money from Avril for the drugs that he had bought. And when Avril couldn't pay for the drugs, Bob went berserk and strangled her with a nylon clothesline that he got from Avril's backyard. The caller further said that the killing occurred Thursday night on a trail and the body was dragged to where it was found. He denied that he witnessed the killing, though, but he was there, supposedly. Shirley asked him, if Bob denies being involved, how can we nail him? And the caller said, tell Bob that Dave has talked to Frank, and that will, quote, scare the shit out of him. I'm not sure who Dave or Frank is, before you ask. But apparently it's going to scare the shit out of Robert. That same day, the secret witness called Shirley again and responded to more questions that Detective Mundy had. The caller said that Avril was picked up at dusk and killed with a 6 to 8 inch rock.
Would that be the skull fracture she had?
Yes, that would be the skull fracture. And he said it was on Thursday, around 7 or 8. And he said he knew it was Thursday because that was the birthday of one of his family members. The caller said that Bob drove Avril on his motorcycle while he drove his own car, like to the trail where she was killed. The caller again said that Avril had been strangled beside the trail, dragged to where her body was eventually found, hit with a rock to make sure she was dead, and then her body was covered with leaves and branches. The caller further said Bob returned later and covered Avril's body with an object like a blanket or a towel or a rug. In describing to the police where they could find Avril's glasses, the rope, and the rock that was used, the caller again used the term meters. When Shirley told the caller that the police weren't able to find the rope near where the body was, the caller said it could be found next to a shed in Avril's backyard. The police later found the nylon clothesline there. The caller said that he would check the next day in with Shirley if there were any more questions, and warned that if he didn't receive his reward money, they would not hear from him again. On August 26th, so this is about 11 days later, the same caller called Shirley again. Responding to more questions provided by Detective Mundy, the caller described the clothing that Avril had worn and said that Bob covered the body with a rug. When asked if anyone had seen Bob return to the body, because supposedly he went back, the caller said that he didn't know, although Bob had gone back several times on his dirt bike.
Can they trace these calls?
I believe they can record them at the very least. I don't know if they can trace them.
Because it sounds like he's got a lot of info.
Right?
And I would want to trace the call and find him.
Seriously, he's got a lot of info.
But I guess being a secret witness, maybe there's some rules to them.
Maybe.
Able to
Yeah,
do that.
maybe that's true. Because they're supposed to be anonymous.
No one would ever call in to those places.
That's true. About a week later, on September 4th, Detective Mundy spoke with Avril's roommate, Robert, again, at Robert's house. Robert told him again that he had driven Avril on his motorcycle to a telephone booth, left her there while he bought some drugs, picked Avril back up, and then they went back to her house. He said he believed this occurred on Friday night, May 24th, because he recalled that the next day he went to a birthday party for his brother's kids. In November of 1985, Robert telephoned the Shasta County Sheriff, Detective Chester Ashman. I believe he must have worked with Detective Mundy. This time, Robert said that he had some information on Avril's case, saying that she had been strangled and hit on the head.
So Robert knows this and the secret witness.
He told Detective Ashman that he wanted consideration on a possession of stolen property charge that he had in an unrelated case, and he wanted immunity on Averil's case. Detective Ashman then told Detective Mundy, and Detective Mundy called Robert. Robert offered to talk to him. Again, it was conditioned on receiving immunity on Averil's case, but Detective Ashman said that only the district attorney could grant him immunity. The next day, November 21st, Detective Mundy and Shasta County District Attorney Steve Carlton interviewed Robert at Robert's house. Robert said that close to the time of his nephew's birthday, he returned to Averil's house and found that his friend Ray Morris was strangling Avril with a rope. When Morris saw Robert, he dropped Avril. Robert thought that Avril was dead at that point, and another man who Robert said he didn't know, apparently was with Morris, pointed a gun at Robert. Morris then used the rope to tie Robert's hands, and he and the other man put Robert in the back of Avril's truck, along with Avril's body. They drove to the woods where they dumped Avril's body, and although Avril was already dead, Morris threw rocks at her body. Robert convinced Morris not to shoot him by promising the men anything they wanted.
So that is what happened 6 months earlier.
Supposedly, yes, in May. After they went back to Avril's house, because Morris did not kill Robert, obviously, Morris told him that if he turned him into the police, that they were going to kill him. A few weeks later, on December 10th, Detective Mundy spoke with Robert again. Robert repeated how Avril had been strangled, but said he wasn't sure if Avril was dead when Morris dropped her. Like at the house, if you remember, before they drove her and Robert's body out to the woods. This time, however, Robert said that Morris forced him at gunpoint to strike Avril on the head with a rock to disguise how she died. During that interview, Robert used the term meters, which led Detective Mundy to suspect that Robert was the secret witness caller. When asked if he was the caller, Robert said absolutely not.
No, of course not.
I will note here that the secret witness caller who had initially given the information about Avril's death never collected the reward money that was so important to him from Shasta County. Almost a year goes by, and on September 11th, 1986, over a year after receiving the last telephone call from the secret witness, Shirley received a telephone call from a person offering information on a burglary unrelated to Avril's case in exchange for a reward. Shirley recognized the person's voice as the same caller who had made the 1985 anonymous calls regarding Avril. A week later, the same person who had called Shirley about the unrelated burglary and whom Shirley believed had also been the caller in 1985, he called again. He wanted immunity on the Avril case. The secret witness calls from this person then stop until 1987.
Can I just tell you something I just realized? So you're telling me that Robert is her roommate.
Yes.
And the secret witness calls and says that a man named either Robert or Bob killed Avril, and police think it's Robert that called.
Yes.
So Robert called saying he thinks a Robert.
Isn't that bizarre?
Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, that's what I'm telling you.
Okay. Just want to be clear on this.
We fast forward now to June 20th of 1987.
So this is 2 years later.
Almost. Because we left off on September 11th, 1986. So almost a year later.
2 years after her murder.
Yes. Robert began talking to a woman named Jacqueline. He drove Jacqueline on his motorcycle to her friend's house where she stayed for a few hours. She returned home and then left her house about dusk to go to a fair. About 1.5 blocks from her house, Jacqueline saw Robert parked on the side of the road, and she wondered why he was there since she hadn't told him her home address. She went over to talk to him, and Robert invited Jacqueline to a friend's house for a party at the bike trails in Happy Valley. She accepted his invitation, and he drove her on his motorcycle to the bike trails. Robert then turned onto a dirt road off Happy Valley Road. I love these names. And he drove on some smaller dirt trails for about a mile and stopped at a clearing in the woods. When Jacqueline saw there was no one around but her and Robert, she became scared and asked him to take her home.
Yeah, like, where's the party, dude?
Right. She was scared that he was going to kill her. Because that's what goes through our minds sometimes, right?
Oh, definitely.
When we're alone with a strange man.
Well, I'm not alone with a strange man, but if I was, yes. And by the way, he's just showing up outside of her house.
Exactly. Jacqueline took her driver's license out of her purse and she hid it in her back pocket because she's thinking if she gets separated from her purse and gets killed, that the police will be able to identify her. Initially, Robert said that they should wait for a few minutes and just hang out there. But then he placed a rope around Jacqueline's neck and demanded that she take off all her clothes as he tightened the slip knot around her neck.
Ooh.
Scary. Jacqueline took off her clothes, and Robert ordered her to lay down. When she complied, he raped her. He didn't kill her, though, and afterward, he took her back home.
Oh, that was
nice of him.
Nice of him.
Sarcasm.
For the record, do not go in a trail with a man you don't know.
I know. It's very scary out there.
I mean, I'm not judging her. I'm just saying it's just not a good idea.
No. But sometimes we're too trusting, right?
Not when it comes to walking in the woods. I'm not trusting a man.
Hey, let's go to a party in the woods with somebody I don't know. Thank you, no. Jacqueline felt that she didn't really have anyone to turn to, so she did not immediately tell anyone about the rape.
She didn't go to the police?
No, and she didn't go to the police. However, in early August, so this is probably about 6 weeks later, Jacqueline told her new boyfriend Gary about the rape. In late August, so a few weeks later, Jacqueline saw Robert drive up to a liquor store on his motorcycle. I don't know if she's outside in her neighborhood or what have you, but she recognized him. And she went up to him and asked him if his name was Bob, and he said yes. Robert then asked her if her name was Dawn. And she's like, no. I know. Does he not remember her? She then went inside the store and told Gary that the man who raped her was outside. He's like, oh, really? So he went out there to confront him. When he did, Robert acknowledged that he was Bob and asked, is that Dawn? When Gary said, no, that's not Dawn, Robert said that Jacqueline looked, quote, just like a woman he knew named Dawn. Gary wrote down Robert's license plate and reported the rape to the police that night.
It's not just even a rape. It's a rape with a slip knot
around your neck. Scary stuff.
That's extremely scary. So who's Dawn?
Oh, you'll find out.
I figured that.
So that happened in August of 1987, and Robert raped Jacqueline on June 20th of 1987. On June 22nd, so we're backing up a little bit.
Okay. The day after her rape.
Yeah, 2 days after her rape. Dawn Berry Hill disappeared. Earlier that morning, Dawn had kicked her boyfriend out of the apartment they lived in together. His name was Mike. Later, her mother, Diana, was babysitting Dawn's 6-month-old baby at Dawn's apartment, and she answered the phone. The caller said his name was Bob, and he wanted Dawn to wait for him because he would be a few minutes late. He asked if Dawn was still living with her boyfriend, and Diana said no, and he said good, because he intended to rent Dawn an apartment and wouldn't rent it to her if she was still with her boyfriend. At about 2 p.m., not long after receiving a second phone call from Bob, Diana left Dawn's apartment to go look for her. She saw Dawn talking to a man that she later identified as Robert in a park about 2 blocks from the apartment. He was sitting on a dark Honda-type motorcycle. Dawn went back to the apartment with Diana, and she told Diana that she was going to meet Bob at 8 p.m., that she'd already been with him that day, and that they were going to go to Big Mama's house to buy pot.
Big Mama's house? Just stop, please.
Diana left Dawn's apartment around 3 p.m. after giving her $100. That was the last time Diana ever saw her daughter, Dawn. A neighbor of Dawn's named Goldie lived above Dawn's apartment. At about 9 p.m. on June 22nd, that day that she disappeared, Dawn asked Goldie for a ride to buy some weed. Goldie said that her car lights weren't working, but she offered to babysit for Dawn if she could get a ride with someone else, because this is later in the evening after her mom had left. Dawn said, okay, yeah, and that she could get a ride with a guy on a motorcycle that is at the liquor store across the street. Several minutes later, Dawn brought her baby to Goldie's apartment and told Goldie she was going to, quote, cop some dope, end quote. Goldie offered some money, but Dawn said no thanks because she had enough money. And that was the last time Goldie saw Dawn. That night, one of Dawn's ex-boyfriend Mike's friends, his name is Bill, he went to Dawn's apartment to get some of Mike's clothes for Mike. Because Mike thought that Dawn would get upset if he showed up at the apartment, Bill dropped him off down the street before he went to the apartment. Bill talked to Dawn in front of her apartment. When it was getting dark, he saw Robert approach them from the liquor store across the street. As Robert approached them, he spoke to Dawn, and Bill decided to leave. As Bill left, he saw Dawn leaving with Robert on his Honda-like motorcycle. Because Robert matched the description of the man seen crossing the street toward Dawn and leaving on the motorcycle, Detective Mundy questioned Robert about Dawn's disappearance several days after. He admitted that he knew Dawn that lived across the street from the liquor store, and that he had also met her in a park a couple of times.
So they were acquaintances.
Yeah, they were acquaintances, he said. And before I tell you the rest of the story, we're taking a break. So Dawn disappeared around June 22nd of 1987. Another woman named Belinda Joe Stark disappeared at the end of June. Before she disappeared, Belinda Joe was staying with her friend Lucy in Fall River Mills, California. Lucy said she last saw Belinda Joe on June 24th, 2 days after Lucy's birthday. On Lucy's birthday, Belinda Joe showed her a small, chrome-colored gun that she carried in her purse at all times. Her boyfriend said he last saw her on June 25th. At that time, she told him that she was going to Nevada City to appear in court that was going to be in about 2 or 3 days later for a traffic violation. But she never appeared for her court appearance in Nevada City.
Is she from Redding, too?
No, she lives in Fall River Mills, which I think is close to Redding. I think it's probably an adjacent city. Because she thought that maybe she was going to have to spend some time in jail at this court appearance, that was probably going to be part of her sentence.
That's quite a traffic violation.
Yeah. And she kind of had a habit of coming and going. Her boyfriend didn't become concerned when she didn't contact him after a few days. No one reported her disappearance to the police. About 6 weeks after Belinda Joe's disappearance, Shirley gets a call on the secret witness line. This person was asking how much money he would receive for revealing the location of the body of Gretchen Olston.
Gretchen? Who's Gretchen?
I'll tell you. Shirley recognized the caller's voice as the same person who had made those 1985 calls about Avril and the 1986 calls on that burglary I told you about. She said that she needed to contact the program's coordinator about getting authorization for a reward.
I suppose she would recognize, given the amount of time she's talked to that caller.
Over and over. And I don't know, maybe he had this distinct voice too. Shirley did get authorization to offer a reward to him, so now she has to wait for him to call back. And he called back on August 17th. He called several times. He told Shirley that Gretchen's death had occurred about a month or a month and a half ago. He said that if he gave directions to the body's location, he wanted to be paid that day without an autopsy confirmation of the person's identity.
I say if he gives them a location to a dead body, he should get paid, whether they identify it as Gretchen or not.
Right? Shirley and the caller agreed on the reward amount for an unidentified body. The caller gave specific directions to the body's location that was in a wooded area in Happy Valley. Shirley then relayed this information to the sheriff's office. The caller called back that same day. Shirley said that the police couldn't locate the body. When she asked if there was a power line in the area, the caller said that they were on the wrong road. The caller said that when he picked up the reward money, he would leave information about the person responsible for the death in an envelope.
Oh, bonus.
He volunteered that, quote, boyfriend was responsible, end quote. Wanting to confirm her identification of the caller, like Shirley just wants to make sure that it's that same person she thinks it is, she taped 1 or 2 sentences during the telephone conversation, and she played the tape for Detective Mundy. And she played the tape both over the phone and in person to Detective Mundy. And having spoken to Robert before, Detective Mundy was convinced that Robert was the person on the tape. As prearranged regarding the reward money, the sheriff's office left a $500 reward for the caller at the pickup point, which was in the office of a title company in Redding. The detective that did it was told that in exchange for the reward money, the caller would be leaving information on the identity of the killer.
The boyfriend.
Supposedly the boyfriend.
Okay. Why is he telling him it's the boyfriend and then going to leave him an envelope? None of it makes sense.
No, it doesn't. The person that ended up entering the title office was Robert.
Of course.
Of course. And he gave the title company's director an envelope in exchange for the one that contained the reward money. The director retrieved the envelope left by Robert and saw that it was empty. So he didn't really leave information. He left an empty envelope. But it was later shown that Robert's fingerprints were on the envelope. Based on the information provided by the secret witness caller, on August 17th, the police found scattered, decomposed human bones in the Happy Valley area, the same general area where Jacqueline had been raped. Although the caller had indicated that the body was that of Gretchen, the remains were later identified as those of Belinda Joe.
The woman that went to Nevada City.
Yes, but she never made it there. The coroner couldn't determine what the cause of death was due to the decomposition, but photographs of the crime scene showed that, and I don't know how they showed this, but that Belinda Joe had been sexually assaulted and died in an unnatural death.
Probably by the position of her legs, I would guess.
Maybe, yeah.
Remember there's that rape pose?
Yeah, you're probably right. In the medical examination, the coroner said that the victim said that Belinda Joe had suffered blunt trauma, force to the upper jaw, which knocked out one of her teeth.
Ow.
He determined the injury had occurred at or near her time of death.
Was her body clothed?
It never said in the record.
I bet it wasn't.
Yeah.
I bet that'd be another sign.
That might be another sign, yeah, not having any remnants of clothing. After Belinda Joe's body was discovered, Detective Mundy interviewed Robert about Dawn's disappearance. Robert offered a theory to the police. He said that Dawn's boyfriend killed her, probably, but then later said that he didn't have any idea what happened to her. He admitted that on the day he last saw Dawn, he had taken her to buy pot, but she was unable to buy any because no one was home, apparently at Big Mama's house.
Stop.
He said that he had returned Dawn to her apartment at noon, where her mother was babysitting. He denied that he took Dawn anywhere that night and claimed that instead he'd been on a date with a different woman. Before his date, he was with a friend named Dave at the home of Dave's boss and told Dave he wanted to be back home by 8:30 for his date. So supposedly Dave is going to be able to corroborate the fact that he didn't take Dawn out that night. On September 15th, Shirley, our good friend at Secret Witness, she got another telephone call from the person who she recognized as the Avril and Gretchen Olsen caller. The caller now wanted reward money for information regarding the body of Dawn.
Do you think Shirley realizes she's talking to a serial killer?
Seriously, I would wonder. I hope she wondered because
She had to.
She had to. Like, what the? And who knows information about all these dead bodies?
I don't know. He's making a living doing this now.
Seriously. The next day, the same person called Shirley 3 times. During the course of these telephone conversations, Shirley offered $500 for the location of a, quote, unidentified body. So this is in addition to Dawn. The caller and Shirley finally agreed that if the caller's information led to Dawn's body, he would receive $1,250, but that if it led to an unidentified body, or the body wasn't Dawn, he would get $500.
This is stupid as fuck, and I'm sorry. I'm just, okay, I'm still with you. My brain hurts from this stupidity.
The caller then told her, well, you'll know if it's Dawn by her hair color. When asked if Dawn was dead, he replied that he saw her boyfriend, quote, do it to her, unquote. About a week later, on September 22nd, the same caller called Shirley 5 times. Detective Mundy monitored and taped 2 of the calls. During the course of the monitored calls, Shirley lied and said that the call wasn't being recorded. She assured the caller that she couldn't recognize a person's voice since she talked to so many people in a day.
Okay.
The caller described the area in Happy Valley where Dawn's body was located and said that Dawn had been strangled with a scarf. Detective Mundy again recognized Robert's voice.
I just can't imagine their frustration. Right? I mean,
Right.
They know he did it. He's calling 5 times a day.
Honestly, and they can't get enough evidence to link him to it. That same day, based upon the information received from the secret witness, the police found a decomposed body in the Happy Valley area about 3/10 of a mile from where Belinda Joe's body was and close to the area where Jacqueline had been raped. The body, later identified as Dawn's, was under a mattress and surrounded by dense brush and pine needles that had fallen from overhead trees.
So is that the third body?
Mm-hmm. It's the third body. It appeared that the mattress had been placed over the body sometime after the body had been placed there, so the killer's going back to cover the body up.
Going back to the crime scene.
Like he did with Avril. And the police knew this because there was pine needles between the body and the mattress. The medical examiner determined that Dawn had died from strangulation and a scarf was found around her neck. Because she disappeared June 22nd and her body was found September 22nd.
So she would be decomposed.
Yeah, somewhat. Probably a lot.
California.
Yeah, California. Later that day after Dawn's body was found, Detective Mundy set up a surveillance at the title company, the prearranged site where the caller would pick up the reward. Detective Mundy saw Robert enter the office where Robert picked up the reward money. An officer took photographs of Robert entering and exiting the title company office.
How much did he get?
I don't know, you're right. Was it the $1,250 or the $500? Because I don't think they identified her that same day. He probably got the $1,250, although the record doesn't say specifically. That fucker.
Unbelievable.
On October 5th, so this is maybe 2 weeks after Dawn's body was found, Detective Mundy and another detective interviewed Robert again. They showed Robert photographs of him entering the title company, and they accused him of killing the 3 women, Avril, Dawn, and Belinda Joe. At one point, the other detective that was with Detective Mundy agreed to fix $580 worth of traffic tickets for Robert if he gave them the name of the Jane Doe, which was later identified as Belinda Joe. Robert said that he knew all kinds of girls who were missing, including Gretchen.
Oh, jeez.
Just knows all kinds. But he denied that he killed anyone. When the detective commented that Robert would need help if he committed these murders, Robert asked to see a psychiatrist.
He said mental health.
Yes, mental health. Robert said a psychiatrist would confirm that he wasn't the killer. So they still haven't arrested Robert. Just FYI, everyone. About a week later, on October 14th, Shirley got 2 more phone calls from the secret witness. The caller was extremely upset that his anonymity had not been guaranteed, and he complained that the police had taken photographs of him picking up the secret witness reward money. He asked to meet with the secret witness coordinator to complain about the breach of the program's promise of anonymity to its callers. Shirley said that she would try to reach the coordinator and asked him to call back. The gall on this person, right?
It's just shocking.
Just the audacity.
Cannot comprehend. How low does your IQ have to be to think you're going to get away with this?
Right. The police are already questioning you about these murders. Saw you go pick up the reward money. Now you're going to call the program, supposedly anonymously, say, there's pictures of me picking up the reward money. It's just ridiculous to me. The police then asked a member of the secret witnesses board of directors, his name was Roy, to impersonate himself as the program director, like saying that he's Roy, but he's the program director, and asked him to meet with Robert. And they did this because the remains of Dawn and Belinda Joe hadn't been identified yet, and they really wanted to get information about these women. The caller called back, and he said his name was Robert Morey. Shirley told Robert that she had arranged for him to meet with Roy, the secret witness coordinator, on the following day. The next day, Robert called Roy. He identified himself as Robert Morey, and he suggested they meet that same morning. During their meeting, Robert was extremely upset that the police had photographed him picking up the secret witness reward money and that they had seized some of his personal items, and I don't know what those were. He was also irate because he said the police had questioned his family members and had accused him of being gay. His family thought he was a murderer. I know, they didn't do this. Robert demanded that unless the police apologize and return his items that they took, he would print and post 10,000 posters and place an advertisement in the paper discrediting the secret witness program.
He's offended. He's upset. His rights have been violated. Mm-hmm. If you tell me he sues secret witness the program, I'm going to lose it.
He does not. I'll just tell you, Celia.
He's not even mildly upset about the fact he's randomly knows about 3 murders and seen 3 dead bodies.
Of course, that's nothing to him.
I need to bitch slap him. I am so angry right now.
When Roy asked Robert if he could provide additional information about the unidentified body that was Belinda Joe's, Robert said that a purse containing an ID could be found near the body. Robert wanted a reward for that information. Roy promised to pay him if the information proved to be accurate, and the purse was found. Later that day, Robert took Roy to where the purse was. He pointed to an object underneath some brush. When they got closer, Roy saw that the object was a purse or a handbag. When asked about additional evidence that would help the police, Robert said that Roy could find a nickel-plated gun also at that location. And remember, Belinda Joe carried one always with her.
Yeah, and she didn't get to use it.
I know, she didn't get to use it. During the search for the gun, Robert became nervous when he heard a dirt bike, like off in the distance, and he abandoned the search with Roy. On the ride back, Robert claimed that his girlfriend's brother told him about the bodies, that the boyfriend took Robert to the bodies, and that they took money and evidence from some of the purses. So I think Robert's trying to say, you're going to find my prints on the purse because my girlfriend's brother made me go out there with him.
But what about Avril?
I know.
I mean, he was taken at gunpoint.
Yeah,
right?
Everybody's making him do these things. So stupid. Robert then told Roy that he would take him to the brother to be arrested if the ID revealed that the purse belonged to somebody that Robert knew. Roy went with the police later, and they found the purse, which was about 0.8 of a mile from where Belinda Joe's body had been found. The purse had her wallet, driver's license, and address book. Robert's fingerprints were on a piece of paper inside the wallet. On that piece of paper, Bob had been written next to a telephone number. The purse didn't have any money, or the weapon obviously wasn't in the purse. On October 16th, Roy arranged to meet Robert to pay him $250 for the purse. Robert said he would then take Roy to where the gun was at. He's trying to, I think he's trying to piece more money out of him. At that meeting, Robert again demanded an apology and wanted his property back and some traffic tickets fixed. Now he's up in the ante. He said that Secret Witness had paid him $1,250 for the last body he had turned in. When Roy asked how much it would cost to recover the gun, Robert said that there would be no extra charge because it was part of the original deal.
Oh my God.
It's like a 2-for-1. He was confident that the purse would identify the Jane Doe, which we know is Belinda Joe. He said that there were more bodies and evidence in the Happy Valley area and referred to another body that had been recovered with a rope or scarf tied around the neck, which was Dawn. But he didn't say Dawn at that time. 3 days later, on October 19th, Robert spoke with Roy on the phone again. He asked if they could identify the victim from the ID in the purse. Roy said that he didn't know. Robert commented that he knew what the identification was and it would identify the body. Robert and Roy met later that day. Robert gave Roy 2 traffic tickets that he wanted him to fix and showed him some anti-secret witness flyers that he intended to post because he still hasn't gotten that apology from the police. The following day on October 20th, Robert called Roy. He said that because he'd received his property back from the police, he wasn't going to post the flyers. Robert agreed to sign a document releasing the secret witness from liability from having divulged his identity as the caller. The day after that, Robert met with Roy to sign the release. The police still haven't found Belinda Joe's gun, though, so Roy asked Robert about it again. Robert assured him that the gun was out there and it was nickel-plated. He said he'd try to get a better location of the gun from his girlfriend's brother and that he would take the boyfriend there so the boyfriend would leave his footprints and the police could catch him. Robert denied that he knew Belinda Joe. The police never found a gun near her body. The detective that was with Detective Mundy when they last questioned Robert, remember they were talking about getting Robert to talk to a psychiatrist?
That's a good idea.
They did arrange for a meeting for Robert to be interviewed by a psychologist. They did set that meeting up, and he met with Dr. Angela Curali to meet Robert on October 23rd and 30th, so she met him twice. In between these 2 interviews, on October 26th, the detective spoke with Robert on the phone and asked him about the cause of Belinda Joe's death. Robert said that, "You already know that information." When the detective said she was strangled, Robert said, "That's what I heard."
Okay.
During this conversation, Robert said he would tell the doctor what he knew about Belinda Joe's death and where he had been told the murder weapon was located. Although I think she was strangled, so I don't understand what he's talking about. During the meeting with the detective, Robert said that he would also tell information that they would want when he met with the psychologist. During his interview with Dr. Curali, Robert claimed that he didn't know the cause of Belinda Joe's death. At the end of that final session with Dr. Curali, the doctor saw Robert pull out what appeared to be a flat boot string from his pocket and quickly put it back. So maybe that's the murder weapon?
Probably.
He commented that she should have searched his jacket while she had the chance, and it would have given her some insight as to who he was. Finally, on November 6th, the police arrest Robert. They searched his residence and they found 2 motorcycles. One was a Yamaha and one was a Honda. I'm not going to go into everything that happened at the trial, but I'm just going to tell you a little bit about his defense case. The defense that was presented was that Robert didn't kill Avril, that really someone else did it. It was Morris. Regarding the rape charge for Jacqueline, Robert attempted to impeach her by presenting evidence that she had prior convictions and she had current charges for theft and she was addicted to meth.
So he's doing a character assassination, basically, of a rape victim.
Absolutely, right? I'm sure that got him far. Regarding Dawn and Belinda Joe's disappearance, the defense theory was that Robert discovered the bodies accidentally while taking routine walks in the Happy Valley area, and that he made the calls to secret witness to get reward money. So after all the evidence is presented and they go through the penalty phase, Robert is found guilty of first-degree murder of Avril, Belinda Joe, and Dawn. He was convicted of assault with intent to commit rape against Belinda Joe. He was convicted of robbery of Dawn and forcible rape of Jacqueline. Robert was then sentenced to death, and he sits on death row in our favorite prison, San Quentin.
If you can have a favorite prison.
I know. It's only my favorite because there's just so many weirdos there.
So many horrible people.
Anyway.
So Robert Mundy is a serial killer that profited.
Yes.
Or tried to.
Off his crimes.
Off his crimes as being an informant.
Yes.
Against himself.
Against himself. And
by
then
calling and saying I think Robert did it.
Isn't that bizarre?
He's a very smart man.
And he thought he would get away with this? I just don't get it. Like, why wouldn't he call up and say, Joe did it or something?
He must have got dropped on his head as a child.
Right? I don't get it. So, yeah.
Thank you, Tanya.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And before we go, please hit subscribe or follow on whatever app you're listening to. If you'd like more information, you can go to our website, tntcrimes.com. If you're interested in becoming a member and all the perks that go along with it.
Ad-free.
Bonus episodes.
Our live faces.
Yes, we do lots of live episodes.
Recordings.
Please go to our website to find out more, or you can go to patreon.com/TNTcrimes. We're on social media.
Yep.
On Facebook and Instagram.
And we've got TikTok.
A few TikToks. And it's
a True Crime Podcast.
At True Crime Podcast.
It's mostly Talia, me, talking.
Yes, I don't do videos.
Tanya won't, so
that's this week's case. So thank you everyone for listening. We appreciate it. And until next time.
Don't kill each other.
Bye.
Bye.